From the streets of Rome
to the kingdom of Aria and one man's space odyssey to sort his life out.
This week, we're discussing Damsel, Spaceman, and Bicycle Thieves.
This is the Film Angle. Hello.
Hi, Alex.
How you doing?
Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. We're here today to discuss the plethora of Netflix releases, streaming releases. No, we're just talking about two today, but there's a lot coming up. We've got a couple of Prime releases next week that we're going to talk about as well with Jake Gyllenhaal and Roadhouse.
Yes.
But this week, everybody's kind of talking about, everybody's watching Damsel on Netflix.
Yeah.
That's been the big movie. Spaceman, we're also talking about today. Not so much. I mean...
Yeah. Well, Netflix did that thing where they release a film and you see it and you're like, oh, I'll have to watch that. And then, if you don't get on it within the first few days, it just dies a death on the streaming service. And it just disappears from any kind of algorithm to recommend it to you. Which is kind of what happened to Spaceman, I think. I think Damsel's doing okay.
Yes.
Still,
I think Damsel's doing great.
Still top 10 in the Netflix film algorithm. But there you go. But do you know what? Nice to talk about a couple of easier films than what we've been watching recently. We kind of alluded to that last week. A lot of serious films we've been catching up with because of the Oscars and the kind of releases that predate that award ceremony. Less serious episode this week. And Kris has probably seen Dune Part 2 3 more times again. So
I've put a full stop to it. I am going back to Northern Ireland this weekend, and my parents did ask me if there was anything that we should see in the cinema, and I said, you could see Dune Part 2. I haven't been to the Belfast IMAX yet.
That would be good. That would be good for them. Maybe not for you. Is the IMAX bigger in Belfast?
I think it's slightly big. I think it's like the second or third biggest screen in the UK. The Belfast one only opened during COVID, so it is brand spanking new. I'll get there one day. I don't think it's going to be this trip.
Fair enough. You can give me a lift there instead, maybe. Do something that.
That's fine. I think I could do something more useful with my family with the 4 days I have them for, other than see a movie I've already seen 3 times.
That's true. Well, we do need to catch up on Ricky Stenicki for next week's episode. So
another Prime release, yeah.
You can stay at home and watch Ricky Stenicki instead.
With my mum.
Yeah. Do you know, every time I say Ricky Stenicki, I realize like I kind of have read it more than I've said it out loud. And when you say it out loud, it's kind of funny.
Ricky Stenicki. Yeah, well, yeah, it is funny.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know how well the film's going to be in terms of comedic value, but we'll give it a go.
Look, we'll see. I mean, before getting into the films we're talking about today, obviously both of them being Netflix releases, what is your kind of general opinion on Netflix releases as a form of medium, you can say now? I mean, does it feel like, I'm watching a movie, I'm really excited to watch it? Or does it kind of feel like the consumer culture now where you're just sticking on a TV show, but this one happens to be like 90 minutes long?
I don't think I've fully gone that, turned around on it that far in terms of TV, but an hour long. But I can see where you're coming from. I think when Netflix first started doing original films, there was a lot more kind of intrigue about them, and they were, the way Apple are kind of doing things now, they were bringing in big names to kind of give them creative freedom just to go forth and do whatever they want with their films. And they still do that to an extent, but those films don't really get kind of bigged up by Netflix.
Yeah, I guess
and then
so.
The big films that they spend a lot of money on seem to be absolute trash. That all look the same with this horrible glossy nature. And do you know what? It's kind of, that a Netflix film has become a bit of a, the bargain bin for DVDs. It's not what it once was. I never get excited, but I don't think Netflix is what it once was either. It's not my favorite streaming service.
I think you're right. I think they kind of use like prestige films like Fincher's The Killer, or something adjacent to that to kind of act as a smokescreen in between. Wes Anderson with with his raw Dahl shorts as well. It's like, use those as a smokescreen. We do make quality. No, we don't actually. We buy them and we distribute them out. The stuff we make, it's got that sheen that you're talking about. I think I'll start off with Damsel today. Should we?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to go. They'll
Okay,
probably feed into each other a little bit.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think Damsel is the classic Netflix looking film, right?
Oh yes. Oh, 100%. And it reminds me of another um, production distributor as well. For the first 20 minutes of this movie, anyway, I felt like I was kind of watching a Hallmark movie. Um, in a
Yeah.
way, in a good way, sort of.
Yeah, I think yeah. Well, for any of our fans who haven't seen Damsel, it follows a I don't is she a princess? I know she's of like high
Yeah, she's like,
ascent. Oh, she's like the daughter of a lord, isn't she?
mhm.
Millie Bobby Brown, who plays Elodie, and their kind of village is very impoverished at the time, and an offer comes in for her to get married off to a prince of a kingdom called Aria, and they're very rich. So problem solved. The only thing is that it's all a bit of a facade in order to sacrifice Elodie to a dragon that threatens to destroy the kingdom unless um, each year 3 daughters of royal descent get sacrificed to this dragon. Am I right in that kind of is that
Yeah.
is that a good summary? I'm really
So
you do these summaries so much better than I do.
Well, from my memory, the the film opens up with a prologue many centuries ago, where the king of Uria like is after this dragon. They corner off into this cave, in this giant mountain, and they basically they kill its babies, right? They kill the little egg hatchlings of the dragon, and
Well, it is
so
revealed that is the true version of events, but we don't see that straight away.
oh, sorry, okay.
Yes, that's
Well, we
revealed
know. I mean,
later
like this.
on.
I will. This will become a theme of this episode as well. This movie is very predictable,
Yes, incredibly so.
incredibly
Yeah.
so. So the dragon strikes up a bargain with the king that he won't kill the king unless he offers a sacrifice every year, to kind of make up for the misdeed of
Yeah.
yeah. So
Which the dragon clearly doesn't like have a clue because like how many daughters does this guy have? I don't how long's this been going on for? I don't know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's all trickery. They cut the hands of the girls they lure in and obviously mix their own blood with them. So it is the dragon thinks they are of the same kind of descent, and it's all trickery. But yeah, you're right. The opening feels like a Hallmark movie crossed with Game of Thrones. Like it does actually look like they just used the set of Winterfell in the
Yeah,
village. Like it does.
yes.
I,
So
I
we're
don't know
not.
if they filmed that way, but yeah,
Yeah, so not the prologue bit. Whenever we get to meet Elodie and her family, or her father is Ray Winston, and
yeah,
stepmother, because mother's not around anymore. Stepmother's played by Angela Bassett.
yes,
Yeah, she's doing the thing here again. So yeah, they kind of they take up the offer to give Elodie, as a as a proposal for both their family to gain wealth and land, as well as as well as apparently the what is it called again, kingdom
Aria
the kingdom of Urea to kind of
or Aurea.
yeah,
Stop saying Uria.
that's what the kingdom should be called. So yeah, it becomes like the first 20 minutes, you're right, it is like a Hallmark movie where everybody's in these really garish outfits that look like they got them from the local costumes shop.
Yeah,
Then put them in these yeah very obviously CGI sets, and it's got this this garish glare to the whole film, and I don't mind that because it kind of reminded me of those other Netflix films like The Princess Switch, or like those sort of cheesy Christmas movies. I was like, okay, this is kind of different. I'm kind of enjoying
mm,
like offhand this is. And then the movie starts, and then like, oh, okay, we're getting the voiced dragon here, um,
Yes.
which I
Yeah.
absolutely loved.
Yes. Sure. I'm really sorry if I butcher this actress's name. Shure Agdashalu. Um, she is brilliant. I don't know if you have seen her in other things. She was in The Expanse as quite a good part. She's also been in Daredevil. I think she's done a
X-Men,
lot of video game characters as well. I think she's voiced quite a
yes.
few video game characters. Man, her voice works so well with that of a dragon here.
Yeah, exactly. And what I actually really liked about the voice as well is that it neither had like a masculine or feminine edge to it. It just felt like it belonged. Like this was the voice of some sort of ancient dragon. There was something menacing but wise about it. But it was a really cool counterpart to Millie Bobby Brown sort of trying to survive in this sort of PG-13 the descent atmosphere underground. If that's me being kind to the film in any way. But
It
yeah, it's a
doesn't spend much time being a survival story though, does it? Like maybe like 15-20 minutes, I feel.
that's what I thought it was going to be. I mean, there's some really cool arresting imagery early on in that cat and mouse game where like the big massive cave space that she enters where the birds come in that are burning. There's a really
Yes,
striking
very
shot of
good
them.
effect. Very
Yeah,
good effect.
that's really cool. And obviously the dragon for the most part is kind of they do the sort of alien thing where they try to keep it very darkly lit and very obscured,
Mm,
but once that they don't stick to their guns on that one for too
no.
long, and it gets a little bit like obvious then.
Well, I think my biggest problem with this film was that I feel like Netflix didn't trust its audience at all. As soon as she enters the cave, she's talking out loud to herself. We're seeing the names of people scratched onto the cave walls, and she's still saying every name out loud, despite the fact that we can see the names. We see a map that someone's drawn, and she narrates her way through the map. And you just think like, how stupid do you think we are? We
Mm,
understand what's going on here. Like, see, don't say. It's a big, it's a big,
big
it's a
rule,
big
yeah.
thing in screenwriting.
But also maybe that part of the screenplay felt like it was geared towards a younger audience, which is completely counterproductive to what else the movie is doing, especially with its action, which can actually be kind of grisly sometimes for its age certificate. There's some like gory like moments that come out of nowhere. Um
Yeah, a lot of grisly kind of burns and stuff.
oh yeah, really good. Yeah, really good burns. Yeah, is that the burn on her leg at the start
Yeah,
of the? Yeah, that really, really,
and the
really good.
burn on her chest, which changes sides at the end.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, does it? I didn't notice that. I did notice that she got progressively more video gamey looking as the movie went on.
Yeah,
No, I did not notice that
yeah, the
continuity.
makeup changes sides a few times.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got like you got some big. I mean, you got Robin Wright here as well. I guess that's sort of a
Yes.
nod to her being in the genre with Princess Bride. I kind of saw it that way, but
I
playing
saw
a
it
very
as
different
that, or
role.
I saw it as like, here's all the people you know from other Netflix projects. I didn't, maybe I was being a
Yeah.
bit cynical here, but I just felt like, I almost felt like there should have been a button that said, "Go watch House of Cards with Robin Wright." "Go watch
Although her
Stranger Things with Millie Bobby Brown."
Oh, and that's the thing. Millie Bobby Brown is probably what is bringing people to watching this project. I think Netflix every like 5 or so years likes to adopt the face of their brand, and she definitely is that, right?
She's Netflix's golden goose at the moment, isn't she?
Yeah, it was. Well, who was the original Golden Goose? Was that Ricky Gervais for quite like a long time,
Um,
on and off?
I feel like it was Kevin Spacey for a minute.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Messed
Could
up with
still
that one.
be. It could still be. Time's a healer. I
I
do not
don't
mean that
subscribe
anyway.
to this, Chris. I don't subscribe to your comments.
Him and Mel Gibson should get a show together. That'd be great, like a Nice Guys 2 or something.
Moving on. Yeah, I'm
But
trying to
yeah,
think who after that. I mean, it was obviously Spacey for a minute. Yeah, I think Ricky Gervais had a moment on there with Afterlife. But yeah, no, I think Millie Bobby Brown's been their kind of thing for a while, ever since she was like the unsung hero of Stranger Things for a minute, and was
Mhm.
projected into A-list world,
And then the Enola
for better or
Holmes
worse.
series, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
which she
which I haven't
co-produces as
seen.
well.
Yeah, she co-produced this one as well, apparently,
Mm.
which is fair play. I like people sticking by their projects. Not sure this was the best thing, but it's probably gonna be a nice paycheck for Millie Bobby Brown either way, isn't it?
What did you think of her performance in this? I felt generally across the board the characters were quite underwritten. Like I
Oh
could
yeah,
not tell you who Elodie is other than then she kind of meets the challenge once she's in the cave and has has the typical traits of honor, I suppose.
yeah. I
But
guess we're very early on shown that she'll do anything for like her people, for her family. So that's like a nice element, but I think that is kind of it. Where they are very much sticking to that very kind of like, this is her trait. She'll just do whatever she can to protect the
yeah,
ones she loves. Um, but then again, the village that's very poor, and so poor that she's had to go off and do this stuff, is not really kind of given any kind of conclusion at the end either. So it's almost like they put that plot point in at the very start. She's a princess of this village essentially, and she's out there chopping wood for the people and stuff. This isn't what they do usually, like these high up lords and stuff. But yeah, they kind of just drop that plot point. There's no kind of conclusion to that. She
so
comes
it
back
is.
with a dragon. I'm not sure how that's going to help people, but
Yeah, like I kind you very quickly sort of realize that her and the dragon are going to like team up and right the wrongs that have happened to both of them, and that their kind of histories align in a way. And then there's this sort of like revenge scene where they kind of go back to the castle, and she's like, absolutely badassing it with the dragon. And like, do they kill people or do they just scare them away? I forget. Does the dragon go to town?
yeah, it does. It definitely kills obviously Robin Wright and that
Oh yeah,
family. At least melts them. I don't know how much. I mean, they destroy the whole castle, so uh,
yeah.
not great for whoever lives there. So who
And
knows?
then and then obviously it's like happy ending and everything. Well, Ray Winston does pass away.
Yes, in a very predictable. He knew all along what he was doing. Uh,
Yes.
and again, accents all very differing. There, Millie Bobby Brown very very well spoken. And then Ray Winston still doing his Ray
Yeah.
Winston thing. They don't seem to be related at all. Um, yeah, but then again, I was trying to think, could either one of these performers be able to pull off each other's accent?
It's
Probably
hard.
not.
And it's hard as well because a lot of these roles are thankless. I think Angela Bassett's role is Lady Bayford, and Elodie's younger sister, Floria. I think they're both really thankless roles where they're just there to be almost scenery for for her as a character. Um,
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
try to do something with Angela Bassett, and obviously Angela Bassett's doing the best she can with the material she's got. And I think that's everybody there is trying to do the best they can with
mm,
the material they've got. But like
she's
you said,
leaning into the camp a little bit more. I think, yeah.
it is all very underwritten. And, you know, Millie Bobby Brown's such a young actress, and she's had to go through, I think, quite a lot of judgment on her throughout her career. So I don't like to kind of add to that, but she's not my favorite actress in the world. She's fine here, but
Mhm.
along with everybody else, the depth just isn't there for me.
Yeah, I think this is probably the least I've been convinced by her as an actor in this role. I think she does the job, but there's just nothing like attaches me to her in this film. I really like her in the Enola Holmes movies. I think she's as perfectly pitched towards her because that character is kind of spunky and precocious by nature, and that kind of fits into her like her own personality. I think off screen, so that I think she's amazing in that role. Actually, I'm going to say, but yeah, this just didn't seem like a right fit. I think even the hair looked a bit weird to me. It's just I was distracted by the hair a lot this movie.
I've heard a lot of people say that. I didn't like, and even Em
More,
said that. I watched the film with Em, and even she was just like awful wig, and I
it's
was like,
red like fire.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm terrible at these things. I'm very willing to go along with whatever most of the time. So yeah, it didn't bother me as much, but yeah, I can understand that. I feel like I zoned out at the scene where she cut it though. I don't remember her cutting her hair. I don't know
Uh,
why.
oh yeah, she did cut her hair. Yeah, I do remember it. But yeah,
Mm,
yeah, it's funny. It just kind of
yeah,
yeah.
I think that she also like the script lets her down in the way of like she makes a lot of noise in that cave despite knowing that the dragon is just listening out for her the whole time.
Yes, I was thinking that too. Yeah, a lot of like just like yelling out in pain.
Yeah, lots of grunts and like, "Argh!" You're like, just shh, shh.
Do you see what he did to your leg? Do you want it to happen again?
Yeah, like she hides all that time whilst her dad gets killed, and then as she's like climbing again, whilst the dragon's distracted, she all of a sudden is like, "Argh!" Like
Yeah.
climbing. You're like, what are you doing?
And
Just shut up.
I suppose by the end of the movie, the dragon is now like cohabiting with her. They it's like they got a relationship now. I think the dragon's alone forever now, right? The
Yeah,
last
some
shot of the
kind of
movie, they're sailing back home, on their big ship, and beside it's got the dragon just lets out does like almost like the Jurassic World thing where the T Rex and the Velociraptor like see each other and nod at each other. It's kind of like happens here again, where Elodie and the dragon give each other acknowledgement, and then the dragon roars, and that's the end of the credits. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I did like the switch up in terms of the dragon deciding to team up with Elodie at the end. You can kind of see it coming for the most part. Um, but I think like I wasn't expecting that to happen when I pressed play on the film, if you know what I mean. Like I
yeah.
thought I knew what I was getting into, and it wasn't 100% what I thought. I definitely thought it was going to be, 90% of the film was going to be in that cave, and it was going to be a
Bit more rugged of a film.
bit more of a survival film. I was fully expecting to have like big chunks with like zero dialogue and just lots of like
Hmm.
you know
Well, the
creating
tag,
weapons and climbing gear and I don't know.
yeah. I mean, the tagline of this film is "This is not a fairy tale," but
Mm,
it really kind of is. It kind of just does feel like another entry into that sort of genre. By the end of it, I'm
yeah.
with you. If it committed to the survival film, a little bit less grunting, it would
Mm,
have been probably a little bit more interesting, because I think the dragon, and the way they use the space and lighting early on when they introduce that creature is the strongest part of this film.
yeah. Everything in the
So
cave looks great. It's like everything outside of the cave.
oh yeah,
They
the CGI is terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't look great. And again, it just has that glossy Netflix sheen to it, where everything's just mega HD, and there's just
Yes,
nothing feels like it's got a texture. It all just feels either shot on a green screen or shot on a set.
it's
I don't
almost
know.
like
Give me
Peter
some grain.
Jackson's. Like all their films, almost to me, look like Peter Jackson's Hobbit movies now. They always have that like
Yeah,
high frame rate, very video gamey texture to them.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. So, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I
I
definitely
still had
had,
fun.
I definitely had fun with Damsel. But considering the caliber of films we've been watching recently, it doesn't even come close to that. Um, yeah, but yeah, I guess I had fun. I'm very surprised that this is what Netflix wanted to spend their money on. But they can do what they want. They know what they're doing, I guess.
I can see people enjoying this, to be honest, regardless of our opinions. I think it will still play to a massive group of people, and they will
Mm,
still have enjoyment. And I think Millie Bobby Brown fans will get what they're expecting too. So no, I think I can recommend this. On a Friday night, you want to switch your
mm,
brain off a little bit. It's not terrible. I mean, I did
no,
enjoy it, to a certain degree, but it's yeah, there's a lot of tweaks that could be made to make us a lot better, and that's the frustrating thing overall, I think.
yeah, it feels like another go round on that script. They might have had something a bit more interesting.
Well, there you have it. You can watch that on Netflix, as well as the next film, Alex, Spaceman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Our second Netflix film, our double bill. Yeah, this film came out before Damsel, and I think is mainly interesting for the fact that it had Adam Sandler in space.
Yep.
Uh, it is a film. about a solo mission to this kind of mysterious cloud that's popped up in the galaxy, of which Adam Sandler, who was a Czech astronaut, is heading out on it's like a year round trip, I think, isn't it, to collect
Yes,
samples from this cloud to figure out what it is.
which is
Uh,
near Jupiter on
near
orbit
Jupiter,
there. Yeah.
yeah. He's having relationship issues with his. I don't think they're husband and wife. I think it's. Are they married? I can't remember.
Um, I think they are married.
Oh,
Yes,
they are married.
yes,
So he's
yeah,
having relationship issues with his wife, who is pregnant, and the Czechoslovakian NASA organization have caught a kind of recording that was about to go out to him of her about to break up with him, which they don't want because he's in a very, very lonely space right now, halfway into his trip, and they don't want anything to compromise the mission. On top of that, a giant spider like creature is in the spacecraft with Adam Sandler, who is very interested by him and his sadness and loneliness and wants to almost study him uh, and get a better understanding of him, and is also able to kind of get into his mind a little bit to unearth
yes,
memories.
yeah.
I really needed to get you to do the summary on this one as well. I don't know why I took the control of the
No, no.
ship. There's
I think you've explained that really well. Um, yeah, I the first there's so many things that are kind of really kind of frustrating about this film, in a way. So the whole theme of this film is loneliness. I think that is what the movie is about, and it's very explicit about that. I never really kind of felt that from Sandler. I never really got that early on that the movie was convinced in. Obviously, you're right. This sort of spider like alien creature comes on board very close into the story, and kind of invades Sandler's space and asks him a lot of intimate questions. At the start, Sandler's thinking what we are thinking, like this thing's threatening. I've seen all the alien movies.
yeah.
This thing's going to kill me. And
But also we don't know if it's in his mind or not. So there's an element of that because we know that he's like almost like far gone into some form of depressive state, right?
okay, that's what I
Everybody's worried about him. Everybody's a little bit worried about his mental state.
okay, that's so true. But I felt frustrated by that because I never saw it as, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's in his mind, maybe it's explicitly real. I think by the end of the movie, I think the movie always thought that it was explicitly real, but I think it's so awkwardly handled at the beginning, the introduction of this being, that you're like, oh, this must be in his head. And then
Mm,
like 5, 6, 7 scenes later, you're like, is it still in his head? I don't know what the movie's trying to tell me right. How did it get in the ship? It's all these sort of questions you ask. Very
mm.
like physical and very, rudimentary questions that you're asking. But I think that's the thing with the film in general. I just sort of struggled to buy anything that was kind of going on. I struggled to buy Sand. I think Sandler's fine. I don't think he's doing anything like on an acting level that's bad. I just
No,
never really found that character was suffering through some sort of like some sort of issue. I felt like this was somebody gets himself up and goes to work, and the issues are more down at home. The stuff with Carrie Mulligan, I think she's given another for the second time this year. I think she's kind of given the rough end of the deal here in terms of screen time. She has to do a lot of the heavy lifting emotionally for the film.
and I think
Um,
that is because Adam Sandler doesn't get much to do. His character is very he's and I don't think this is a performance thing. Like I think his character is a very bored person. He's bored. He's disassociated himself. He's up in space with nobody around. And I do think he does sell the loneliness. I think, or at least the boredom. I think the struggle to get up every day and keep
okay.
doing this. I think he does sell that. But I think you have such an interesting actor with Adam Sandler, and I'm not saying it should be a comedy because we all know that Adam Sandler can do more than that. But I
Hmm.
think he's such an interesting actor. It's like why have you got him in this role if there's like nothing for him to do apart from be very one note?
Hmm. I think that's where I was sort of disappointed, I suppose, because I kind of knew what he was capable of. seeing what he's been able to do with Anderson, with Noah Baumbach, with the Safdie brothers previously. I know that he can be such an electrifying presence on screen when he needs to be. And yeah, I guess it's a different type of movie. I understand that he needs to tone it down a lot here,
Mm.
but I don't know. I just thought it was a very vanilla performance from him. Maybe directly so, but maybe that's more in the writing. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the performance. I just can't really get my grasp on that. But yeah, the movie kind of plays very lyrically. There's this sort of very musical, emotional sort of thread that goes around the film. It almost plays a bit like a long music video. I felt that the movie felt that it was very beautiful. Like it was kind of infatuated with itself in terms of its pacing and how it used that sort of rhythm to kind of carry the audience through emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think it thinks that we're along for the ride much more than we are. And it's kind of awkward by the end of the movie when you're like, oh, I know this thing's expecting me to be breaking down to pieces right now, but I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, I completely agree. That my kind of big kind of grievance with the film was it's really not as deep as it thinks it is. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was bored throughout most of this film. And I think like it's one of the great sins of a film, right? Is to just be completely and utterly bored. And it's a shame because when you compare it to Damsel, it doesn't have the Netflix glossy sheen. It is clearly trying to do more.
Yes.
It just isn't doing it. And I can't like fully pinpoint why it isn't working because you're right. Like Carey Mulligan is great. She's doing a lot of heavy lifting, but I just wasn't connecting with anybody here.
Yeah.
Um,
And I was
I
struggling
just
to buy that relationship, the trauma of that relationship too. It seems that this whole issue started when he was on the flight, right? That this sort of issue between her leaving him. And it just kind of, I found it kind of confusing. I wanted a little bit more insight into their relationship, to how they got to that moment. It seems
mm,
like such an interesting and almost crazy decision to kind of break up with a man that you're nearly having a baby with and you're married to when he's so far away. And,
not
in that part
in
of
the
the relationship, and
best,
not,
not in the best
yeah.
way either. It
And
feels kind of dangerous to do that.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like, imagine being up there for 6 months by yourself, and then, he knows. I mean, maybe he was the bad part of the relationship, and maybe this was stewing for a long time, but still, I mean, imagine if you got told after 6 months of being by yourself in the middle of the Milky Way that it's over.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you
well,
almost feel like there's nothing to come back to. Um,
yeah, exactly.
and I feel like it should have at least started in a like maybe like a few days earlier. Give us at least one video call between the two of them so we get an understanding of what the status quo is instead of because we don't see any calls between them, do we? Before the one that's caught from his wife,
No,
where they catch it before it goes out, where she's breaking up with him. We don't get to see what the current status is, really.
yeah,
But and I guess maybe the film just wants us to get it all from flashbacks and memory scenes and all that kind of stuff. But I think
I find that an exhaustive technique that's used too much now.
yeah, yeah. I don't
Um,
know.
there's other cast members in here too.
Yep.
Obviously, Paul Dano plays Hanus, who is the spider.
Very,
um,
very, very good. I think that's two things we can say
he
about
does
each of
sound
our
like the
Netflix
Riddler.
films. Is both have a magical creature voiced by a brilliant kind of performer, and yeah, they are kind of the stars of the show, really, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. I was interested in Hanus, and hearing this. He had stories of his own from his own planet, and all these. It was kind of interesting from that point of view, and I guess unintentionally the movie had me on its hooks in terms of like, I don't know where this is going with this creature. Is it? I kind of didn't know if it was ever going to be threatening until about 3/4 of the way through the film. Isabella Rossellini's in here too, surprisingly. I quite liked her in this movie actually as Commissioner Tooma. I actually, she's in a different film
Yeah,
completely,
yeah,
but
yeah.
she's doing it quite well. She seems to be quite engaged and intellectually authoritative in her moments of speeches and boardroom meetings and everything. I quite enjoyed her. There's Kunal Nayar, who's Peter, who is so Jakub, who's played by Adam Sandler, is constantly in dialogue with somebody back in the Czech Space Center, and that is Peter. But I never really felt I felt that character was completely pointless. I never it was just such a non-character. It was this guy that was checking up on him every so often. That we every 10 minutes we spent some time with him, but there's nothing there. There's nothing. I find that completely frustrating for me. To kind of watch any scene of that. It was pointless filler.
Yeah, you almost wanted them to have just
A relationship at all, yeah.
a stronger relationship.
This guy seemed bored.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with everybody in this film. But I don't know if that was just kind of the you know, the kind of aesthetic they wanted to portray was this kind of very kind of grey,
Which
dour
makes sense.
environment. Yeah, which
'Cause-
which makes sense. But you're right. It was really it struggled to kind of like connect with anyone because everyone just seems so sad.
I mean, this is by the director and producer Johan Rank, who made Chernobyl, so that could be part of the sadness
Did he direct
factor there.
Chernobyl?
I think he directed. I don't know if he directed every episode, but I know he was a director on the show.
Okay, yeah, I think there was only one director. So
Yes, sorry, yeah, it was him. Yeah,
yeah,
for all
fair
episodes.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. There you go. The other thing I wanted to like discuss as well because I couldn't kind of wrap my head around it. So there's a lot of kind of 2001: A Space Odyssey vibes. I think it picks a lot of that from that,
Hmm.
and one of those elements is the kind of ads, the commercialized nature of space travel. Adam Sandler's astronaut has done ads for this cleaning product. But at one point in the film, they want him to say the slogan before they use it on the spacecraft. But that made me think, is he being filmed? Is this like a live TV show thing? Is this like a Truman Show thing? But I never got the feeling that that was the case either, or else they would have seen
Uh-huh.
the giant spider. So that really confused me. I don't know if you had any kind of
I think it's
thoughts
like
about
this
that.
sort of it's really pointless to the overall film, but I think it's just this sort of intercom video thing that he can tap into every so often, and I think it's just that's how they handled that. Really, I think they can see things. If no, they did mention in the film that they had a camera in every single pod, and some of them that were down.
Yeah.
Like they had one in the corridor, etc. But yeah, nobody ever mentions the kind of spider, you know, creature at all. No one ever mentions
No,
seeing
and he
it.
tries to get them to see it when it's in one of the rooms, but that's one of the rooms where the
The
camera's
camera's
gone
off, but they
down.
just drop it for the rest of the film. Then, don't
Yeah,
they?
and then I was just like, so then I was confused. Are all the cameras down? If so, why is he saying the slogan of this cleaning product before
Yeah.
it goes out? I just didn't know what the film was trying to do there. I just didn't know if it was like picking, I do think it cherry picked a few ideas, and I don't know if it's just because we saw it recently. I feel like I've only seen one space film, and I'm like, hey, that gives me 2001 vibes. But they
No,
traveled
but
to like a point in time where they, there's a lot of kind of space ends and begins here. Da, da, da.
no, you're right. But also the interior of the ship, I think, is a strong point of the film. The set design for that, I think it's very like tech heavy and very, which is similar to 2001, where it's fixated on what is life inside one of these little tin cans in space going to look
Mm,
like. The treadmill that he uses every day. All the set design is very well done, and I feel like I kind of by the end of the film have a grasp on navigating the ship, which I think is really important when you make any sort of sci-fi film. So yeah, from aesthetically, I would say I enjoyed that aspect of the film. Again, I don't know if I was as bored per se, like you were. I think there is a rhythm, and I know that's kind of woven into the film, and it's completely intentional that you're woven into this rhythm, this melodic sort of feeling this whole way through. And I kind of recognized it, so I was able to ride that feeling, but I never felt like enveloped by it or emotionally, you know, overcome by it at any point. It just kind of felt like you. I feel we're exactly on the same page here. It's a bit of a flat.
Yeah. And nobody would ever send one person. I know this is such a stupid thing to have because it's a
I think
film.
there would be a lot of hands in the air that would want to do this. I think.
I mean, yes, but like no space agency would send one person. Like if that
on
person
those
gets
mental health reasons for somebody,
for mental health reasons, for like if that person gets ill and they can't do a specific thing to keep the ship running, it just seems very silly to me. That ship was clearly big enough for at least 2 people.
yeah. But then it wouldn't be a film about loneliness, then would it?
Maybe somebody should have died. I don't know. Give me something. I don't know. Would you do it with me, Chris? Would you go up to space for a year?
Hell
For
no.
a round trip?
Would you go to space? Like, just a general question. Would you go to space?
I'd be terrified, but I'd love to.
Oh, I know. I would be
Not for
terrified
long,
too.
but that's what I'm saying. Would you do a year-long trip with me? You and me in a
Not a
spaceship?
year. Hell no. That would stink.
We could still record the podcast. I'm a very clean person. I wouldn't stink it out for you. Don't worry.
It would end. I think it would just smell like a leathery boot by the end of by month 1.
We could take we could take a games console up with us.
I'm
play
there.
play some Star Wars Battlefront
In space. Yeah. I will do a month. I will say that. I won't do a year with you. Okay. A podcast in space. That'd be cool.
That's what I'm
saying.
saying.
The first.
We'd definitely get some listeners then if we were the first podcast in space.
Okay. Yeah. Virgin, you heard us here. Sign us up.
Don't say virgin like that.
I'm calling all virgins. You heard us here. Assemble.
Yeah. I reckon,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We should look into it.
We should. Yeah, we'll put it as Plan C at the minute. Okay.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Sorry, I've taken us off track there, but I just wanted to see if you would.
Okay.
I mean, you wouldn't have to work. I mean, you'd be in space working, but like, all I'd ask for is like a big TV.
Yeah.
And some kind of surround sound. Like, give me a full-on cinema room in the ship, and that's it. Everything else, fine.
Oh, just make it look like it is in the movies where I just press like one of 3 buttons. Like if it's anything more than that, I think it's a bit.
Yeah. I'm not going outside. I'm not hooking myself up.
I'm not hooking myself up, fixing some fan or something on the outside because it always never works out.
No, get Hal to do that. I'm not. Yeah.
There's no Hal coming on this ship. No Siri. No Alexa. Okay, that goes our double bill, Netflix double bill for this week. It's a bit of it was a bit mediocre.
Come on, are we excited for anything coming out on Netflix this year, Chris?
I
mean, there's probably a few films from filmmakers we don't even know are about to drop, and they'll drop like tomorrow. And we're like, oh yeah.
Isn't the new
Richard Linklater film?
Richard Linklater Hitman.
Yeah, so that's going on. Yeah, excited for that because it's Richard Linklater.
And I've heard good things about it too.
Excited for that. I'm trying to think what else.
They'll probably just trickle in through the year.
I'm not even sure there's a Netflix show I'm excited for this year.
Yeah. I mean, you can watch Pokemon on there.
Yeah, you can watch Dune Part 1.
You can, which had a bit of a resurgence. I see it was in the top 10 for quite a few weeks.
Well, that would be about right. But it kind of shows you as well, like, Warner Brothers have HBO Max or whatever it is in the States, but they're still selling their films to Netflix because it's better for them.
Well, there you go. No. But yeah, I'm yet to be impressed by Netflix this year so far.
Yeah. Early days, though. Early days.
Anyway. On to a film, I don't know, Alex, if you did, but I certainly loved. And it was a blind spot to end all blind spots, as they all are on the BFI list. But this one felt particularly painful, that I hadn't seen it, and it's Bicycle Thieves. A beloved movie, Italian film about a man who's working. Well, it's post-war Italy, so we're talking 1948. The movie came out, but it's set in that sort of period where unemployment rates skyrocketed in Italy, and it seems a man trying to get a stable job day to day was a pretty hard thing to do,
Hmm.
and yeah, we follow Antonio Ricci, who has a son and a wife who you kind of, I think they kind of are doting to him, and he is kind of trying to navigate and find work on a daily basis, but realizes that he can only do so if he can get a bicycle. So he saves up his money. They sell some of their homewares. I think they're linens at home or something like that.
Yes, to kind of buy back a bike that they had pawned, essentially.
Yeah, and pretty much to get this bike back is pretty much nearly all the money that they have, and so yeah, he's able to go to work, and but on the first day of working, he gets his bike stolen by a very colorful group of chaps who just kind of say see you later, and they take the bike down the road, and he goes on this odyssey with his youngest son, Bruno, to find the bicycle. And as time goes on, the bike's just getting further away, and the more desperate Antonio gets, and we start to see the ugly side of poverty, or the cycle that people get into. That, well, what can I do? What can I
Yeah.
do to get out of
What
this?
leads a man to steal a bike in the first place? And our main
Exactly.
character goes through that turmoil.
Hmm. Yeah. This is a painful film to watch in that way, because I think the movie does a really good job, and I think Lamberto does a really good job in his performance of Antonio, making us feel like this guy's a little bit clumsy. He's a little bit like, he's a little bit scrappy, but he seems like a really like a nice father, and a guy that we're rooting for
His
really early on.
his heart's in the right place. He doesn't always make the smartest of decisions, but you
He's
know,
excited to work and provide for his family.
absolutely, absolutely. And you're right. Like in terms of a blind spot, this is the probably most famous Italian neo-realism film there is. The Italian neo-realism wave was a wave of films which were quite simple in execution, but all shot on location, using a lot of non-professional actors to tell these kinds of stories. So
Yeah.
yeah, Antonio is I believe is a factory worker in real life. Bruno, the kid who plays Bruno, was plucked off the streets whilst they were filming this. With the direct,
He's fantastic.
he's so good. I love Bruno. The director saw him as they were filming some of the earlier scenes and said, "I want to use that kid," and they did. And what a little star he is.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's like a kid who's kind of grown up too fast because of the environment surrounding him. He's 8 years old, and even he has a job in order to help provide for the family.
Yeah.
And he's a funny little thing. Oh, I bloody love Bruno, and
I
which
know.
makes the ending even more sad, really.
I know he's like 2 feet tall, but he has as much stature as his father. They almost seem equals standing next to each other, which is very odd.
They do, especially because Bruno almost seems like he's like smarter than him at times. Like,
Yeah.
where, he's like, "Oh well, if I had been there, I would have said like, why is the bike bent up like this?" Like, who is
Yeah.
this little kid? But yeah, he's forced to grow fast, I guess. But yeah, which makes those kind of final scenes of when he almost gets to see, how far down the well his father has fallen in terms of having to attempt to steal a bike himself, and him crying as the mob are kind of trying to grab him and imprison him essentially for this wrong deed.
Mhm.
God, it's quite a tricky ending. Not to jump so far to the ending, but it is
Well,
probably
it
the most
is.
powerful moment in the film.
Yeah, it is certainly the moment that stays with you the most. But I think the whole journey is quite, it picks you up. It's a very breezy film, to be fair. And Antonio's not alone with his son in searching for this bicycle. He actually enlists a lot of help from his friends who actually help him
Hmm.
on the second day to go to. So it's usually when a bike is stolen, they mention that it is usually picked apart and sold for parts the next day in a flea market.
Yeah.
And everybody in the flea market knows that these bikes are stolen, but they keep it hush hush from the police. So
And the
it's kind
police
of
don't really do much either. They even say to Antonio like, you need to go look for this thing because we're not going to look for your stolen bike.
yeah. I think it makes a really good point of that in the film because I was thinking about other films. I was thinking about, a Marvel movie. What happens in a Marvel movie when a superhero punches his fist down the street and about 500 bicycles are destroyed in that moment? So yeah, it's interesting here that this thing that would be nothing in any other story, it would be nothing. It'd be a side plot. Is completely this man's world and focus. It means everything to him in this story. So it makes sense for the police because the police are kind of like us, how we would be if we just heard about the story. Like, oh, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Yeah,
It's
like I'm
like,
not searching all of Rome for one bike. Bikes get stolen every day. It's a waste of
which
my time.
which is devastating because you're on Antonio's side, but
Yeah,
like
this is
at the same
his.
time, that's kind of the realistic answer, I suppose.
Yeah, the bike is his source of income. Essentially, he can't have a job without it. And there's so much kind of pressure
Context, yeah.
put onto this bike that when it is stolen from him, and they kind of, the title of the film, how important the bike is, and there's so many times when you think it's going to get stolen before the actual event as well. It puts you really on edge,
Yeah, yeah. It's
in the build up.
his wife goes in to see the fortune teller upstairs,
Mm,
and he runs in after her, and he asks the kid to look after the bike, and you're like, this is where it's going to happen, and it doesn't happen. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, which is yeah, no, it is really good. It's a really well done film. It's so simple, but it's just so effective at the same time, in kind of telling this story, the cycle of poverty in post war Italy. Apparently, Italians didn't like it when it first came out. They thought it portrayed Italians in a bad light.
Okay. You're seeing, I guess, a lot of the ensemble are the perpetrators.
Hmm.
Towards the end of the film, so I guess so. I could see that argument, but yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, it's this movie is just so well acted, and I think it's got such a disarmingly light score, musical score to it as well, that makes the whole thing feel hopeful. Even when really horrible things are happening, I think the movie does such a good job at making you think for up to about three-quarters of the way through the whole production, where you're thinking maybe the bike will just show up.
Mm.
I can understand how he could be so desperate because like, oh, maybe the fates will come my way. Maybe it will just show up. Maybe if I try hard enough, I can find this thing. But then at the same time, you're thinking the same effort you're putting into finding this bicycle, you could be working to get another one. But I know it's about pride and principles and a
Well,
working man.
but also we saw at the start of the film how many people wanted jobs, and the
Mhm,
only reason that Antonio was given a job was because he had a bike. So we
mhm.
know there's not really like any jobs for him, or he'd at least have to wait a long time to get them.
Yeah, I don't think he would have even kept his job. He didn't seem very good at gluing the posters.
Yeah, but
He would have got
I,
better. He was keen. He was keen.
he was keen. Yeah, he was keen. But yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it's quite a sad film in that
But
way.
but at the end of the film, like you alluded to, the devastating moment where he is just driven. He's at his wits' end, and he's driven to steal somebody else's bicycle. But he gets caught in the act, and a whole mob chase him down the street. And the most devastating part of that moment is that Bruno, his son, witnesses this and sees his father be a villain almost,
Yeah.
and to have so many people yelling at your only sort of authoritative parental figure, and villainizing him is so devastating. And obviously, Antonio is so lucky; he gets let off the hook at the end. But
Which
it's
is
almost more.
why I don't, I think there's a lot of nice Italians in this, or understanding Italians that
I think the last
it
police
makes,
officer is he seems fair. Like he seems like a nice. I thought he was as nice as he could have been in that moment.
yeah.
No, sorry, not that. The police officer who, so Antonio earlier on thinks he's found the perpetrator, and accuses a young guy of doing it, and they
Yeah.
go he
Which he
enlists the
was. He
police.
was the guy who did it, wasn't he?
I don't think no, it was the three guys that showed up to defend the young guy were the perpetrators.
I think the young guy was the guy.
No, because the guy still had slick back hair. This guy, I think it was a completely different kid, but the people who actually did it were just happened to be there, and they used that as a smokescreen to kind of distract the situation.
Oh, okay.
That's how I saw it. I could be wrong, but I was pretty sure about that. But
Hmm.
mm,
I was under the understanding he was the thief, but obviously his kind of community and neighborhood stuck up for him. And we're also shown as well, like he's living in a way where there's like four people in one room in his house and all that kind of stuff. Then like I thought we were given like a moment to see like why
yeah,
he has been pushed into that life as well. So yeah, I read it differently. I might be
okay.
wrong. You might be
No,
wrong. I don't know.
well, to be honest, I hope it's your way because it sounds thematically better.
Yeah, and I guess like you could see that as the fact that everybody's willing to stick up for this guy is maybe a bad thing because it's obviously not the honest thing to do, but it is like the community thing to do in that moment. But I think everybody has that community because even Antonio, as you mentioned, his friends help him try to find the bike and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I guess everybody has their circles.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So Vittorio De Sica, who directed this, I don't think I've seen any of his other works. I know he's an actor himself. I think he was in the Earrings of Madame De.
Was he? Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
He was the other, the one she was having an affair with.
Oh, there you go. A bit of a crossover there.
So yeah,
Oh
obviously very talented.
yeah, I've
Yeah,
just had a quick look at the picture.
and he was really good in that too.
Yeah, yeah, he was. Yeah, no, I haven't seen any of his other films either. But I've just seen a poster of a man holding a dog. So now I want to see this film, called Umberto D.
It's basically, it looks like the Italian version of Ikaru. So yeah, very good. Yeah, I mean, so I watched this after the two Netflix films, so I was given hope by the end of this.
I watched this before the two
Oh
Netflix
no.
films, so I was still watching many a good film in the run up to watching two pretty below average films. So I don't know how you feel about that. I do have a little interesting sight and sound fact for you here, Chris. So
I'm all
as you
ears.
all know,
I'm all ears.
this is all part of our BFI Sight and Sound blind spot list, and that list happens every 10 years, from the Sight and Sound magazine, where they bring in directors and critics and stuff to vote on the greatest films of all time. Now, that poll started in 1952, and Bicycle Thieves was the number one film of the first ever Sight and Sound greatest films of all time
Wow.
list. They didn't have a top 100 then. I think they only did like a top 10 or top 15. But Bicycle Thieves has been in every single list since the beginning, and obviously started at number one.
Wow. Where did it's 1952? Was Singing in the Rain already on that list at that point? Because that came out in 52, I think.
I don't know because I think Bicycle Thieves was like what 4 years
48.
old. But
Yeah.
I had a quick look at the list. I don't remember seeing it on there. I don't think it
Yeah.
was considered one of the greatest
It
of all
needed more
time in
time
the
to kind of, yeah.
yeah
That's really impressive seeing the film only being out for 4 years.
yeah.
Obviously that's a big impression. I mean, do you feel like now you've seen it, you feel like, yeah, I can see why it's on this coveted list?
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, I can see so too. I think it's a really good. A lot of films borrow from it, and it's a great lesson of simplicity and how you can still get a lot of emotional sort of catharsis from that.
Yeah, and I think it shows, especially for like 1948, it's like a different way of making a film, and I love the realism element to it. It doesn't, nothing about it feels overly theatrical, despite the fact that it is kind of a fable in a way. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it's a mini odyssey, isn't it?
yeah, and I love the father son relationship. I love Bruno. What a kid, man! What a kid.
Yeah, Bruno is like one of the best young actors I've seen in a performance. I just think incredible. I think it does feel it makes sense that they plucked this kid from the street because he feels like he is one with the street.
Yeah.
If he feels simultaneously Antonio's son, his brother, and his cat at the same time. So well done to Enzo Stiola for getting all those different layers into that role. I think it's a stunning film. Yeah, completely worth being on the list. I'm glad I caught up with it finally.
Yeah, no, yeah, this was a big old blind spot for us here, but I'm glad we've been able to rectify that, and that is what the list is all about.
That's what. And when we get to number one, the next BFI list for the next 10 years should be out by
Uh,
then.
we're making our way. We're making our way. We'll I think we'll be getting closer and closer soon. I think we'll be all right.
What's next on the list for
Uh,
listeners?
so next on the list is actually a blind spot only for yourself, Chris, which is Breathless. We're going back to
Jean
Jean-Luc
Luc?
Godard. I assume you've seen Rear Window and Some Like It Hot.
Yes,
Yes,
definitely have.
so we can skip those two. They're not blind spots. They are both amazing films. In fact, Rear Window might be my favorite Hitchcock film.
I don't need an
Um,
excuse to rewatch Rear Window like all the time. It's fine.
but yeah, the next one we'll actually be discussing will be Breathless, and then the next one after that, which is both a blind spot for both of us, is Fritz Lang's M, which I'm very
Oh,
excited for.
okay.
Actually, yeah, I'm very excited to watch M. And then we're back into City Lights, which is another Charlie Chaplin film. So yeah,
Oh,
lots
some
of
really exciting ones.
yeah, we are getting into the bottom half of the list now, and we've got some really exciting films to catch up on. So yeah, no, very excited indeed to do so. But that's not the only film we're talking about next week. We are well, it all depends. You've obviously got your Ireland trip, Chris, and it all depends on what you get chance to watch and all that kind of stuff. But the idea is this week we had our Netflix double bill, and next week we're going to have an Amazon Prime double bill. Maybe we'll give you the pros and cons of each streaming service and their outputs. But yeah, we're going to watch, as mentioned at the start of the show, Ricky Stenicki, the new comedy film, and we're also going to watch Roadhouse, the Jake Gyllenhaal remake film, which also stars Conor McGregor of all
Oh,
people.
yes.
So
I saw second bill.
second build. I'm actually quite excited for Roadhouse. I've not seen the
Yes.
original. I heard they're like, more like cousins
Yeah,
than
sure.
brothers. Like it's not like
I don't
it's
think the original is very plot heavy anyway, so I don't think there's a lot of lore to dig into.
no. I
It's
think it's
purely
quite a
aesthetic.
well loved B movie though, right?
Yes, yeah, it is. Oh, yeah, it's
I
a
do.
Family Guy made fun of it.
Yeah, I do want to. I do want to watch the original, but I think I will watch the modern one first. Which, yeah, I'm actually quite excited for. And it's fascinating. Jake Gyllenhaal got absolutely mega ripped for it, and yeah, I'm very intrigued to see Conor McGregor in an acting role.
Oh yeah, because isn't Jake Gyllenhaal's character supposed to be an ex UFC fighter who
Mm-hmm.
becomes a bar bouncer? So that makes sense for the Conor McGregor thing. Then okay, I'm up for the ride. I'm more excited than I was for the last two films, so I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, true. These both, I think, are more interesting on paper, but still very easy films. That's being said, I think I really wanted to, like, I went into Spaceman really hoping it was going to be better than what it was.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but I'm a big Adam Sandler fan as well. So, but he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. But yeah, so that's next week's episode, guys. But we hope you have enjoyed this week's episode, and yeah. Chris is going to get schooled on another Jean-Luc Godard film next week. One of his best, I think.
Okay.
His first as well. So yeah, very intrigued to see what you think of that one, Chris. I think we both have a bit of a love-hate relationship with
I think
Godard.
that's the
So,
thing.
but
When I'm
will
when
be
I'm
interesting to see.
yeah when I'm on his wavelength, I am. Sometimes I just get lost in the sea of things that he is interested in. This one film, I'm like, oh, pick one.
Yeah,
But
this
so
is
we'll see how it falls.
he does. It is very interesting in a very Godard way, but it's quite, he hasn't fully branched out. This is his first film. It's
Okay.
still, I think, one of his more accessible films. Yeah, and many consider it to be his best. But yeah, Jean-Paul Belmondo is in it again, and
Oh yes,
he's a lovely actor. So yes.
yeah. He was the one in Pierre the Fou who was jumping around the place like an absolute like Olympian.
Yeah, he's an absolute nutcase in Breathless, but once again looks so cool with a cigarette in his mouth that it makes you want to start smoking.
We do not endorse smoking on the film angle. I mean, if you smoke, that's absolutely fine. I mean, like everybody's up to their own, devices here. But this episode is sponsored by Camel.
I was trying to think of other cigarette brands, and
Mayfair, and I don't know if that's in that's what we have in the UK, right?
I have no idea.
That's the fancy ones. That's what my dad used to smoke.
I don't know. I can't remember.
What's the one in Pulp Fiction? What's the brand in Tarantino's universe?
Marlboro?
Marlboro? No, that's a real brand. Isn't like Apple something in whatever.
I don't know.
We can tell we don't smoke.
Yeah. Two non-smokers. Losers.
Okay.
Cool. All right then. I guess I'll see you next week, Chris.
I guess I will. I will.
Go follow us on TikTok. Go follow us on Instagram. Please. Actually, that sounds very beggy, doesn't it? Please rate us on Spotify. Rate us on Apple. Your reviews really help. Even if it's just a star rating, they just help push the podcast elsewhere. So it would be really nice if you could do that for us, or engage with one of our polls. Pretty please. Do all that for us without sounding desperate here. But yeah, come back next week. We'll have another cracker for you, I'm sure. But that's been the film angle for this week. I'm Alex.
And I'm Chris.
Goodbye and good night. Are you going to say goodbye?
Goodbye. What do you want from me?
All right.
Bye.